Okay, everybody. How's it going out there? Sarah, how you doing?
Okay,
Okay,
as well
good.
as one can be in these interesting times.
Well, that's what we're here to talk about. I'm super excited to be able to share with everybody today and join in um, to wherever you are. So many great places I saw, like local places, distant places, the moon. Where else? Just kind of like scrolling through here. Scotland, that's red. We got a howdy from Texas. India. It's pretty late in India, no? That's incredible. Um, well, super excited to have everyone here. Hello and greetings. Super glad you can join us in your morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. Just a couple introductions about who's here. I'm Scott, and I'm coming to you live from my basement office here in Philadelphia. I'm a design advocate here at Abstract, and I'm super excited to have the Sarah McIlwain from our product design team. She's a product design manager here at Abstract. She's coming live from her home office in Seattle, Washington. What's up, Sarah?
Hey, good morning. How you doing?
I'm good. I just polished off my coffee and feeling good and like moving
Nice.
now, so things are good. As this whole conversation is about, we're talking about some remote stuff, and I'll just give the warning right now. My kids are on their break from schoolwork, so they may run down here. Yours
Same,
too?
same.
Okay.
I
I'm just
mean, we may be here to talk about remote work and remote design teams, but there's one thing I'm not qualified to talk about, which is how to homeschool your child and work full time. So if
right.
anybody here has that one figured out,
Yeah, maybe the trifecta is like
yeah, on
working,
Twitter.
schooling, and being the cafeteria person all at the same time. Crazy.
It's gonna be fun.
So it has been quite a year. A lot of us are saying the same thing. 2020 wasn't what I was expecting coming in.
Right.
And a lot of us in the design industry, and maybe just industry in general, were being sent home to work instead of being IRL in real life with our coworkers. And for a lot of us, it wasn't by choice, and it was kind of abrupt. But here we are, nonetheless. Many workers facing having that home be that thing we just talked about: their office, their school, their cafeteria, their
Yep.
playground, all those things. So here at Abstract, we've been a remote first company since our founding,
Yep.
and we've been building tools for these distributed design teams. So we're pretty excited to share a thing or two, what we've learned and what we've seen other successful distributed design teams doing. But before we totally dive in, I just want to take just a quick moment and a quick beat here to recognize what even got us here. The global COVID-19 pandemic is super jarring and really disruptive, to say the least. A lot of friends and family have been affected both or in all kinds of ways: physically, occupationally, emotionally, mentally, in just so many ways. And I love that we get to discuss this idea of remote work together
Yeah.
and really just kind of build on that, but also pause to reflect and realize that there are tons of folks out there who cannot work remotely. And even further, if I could, I just want to celebrate the friends and family that we all have. We're continuing to serve our society as
Yeah.
health professionals, first responders,
Yeah.
grocery workers, delivery folks. All of those folks are putting their interests above their own. And to, if you know someone in that space, I just want, from me and Sarah and the rest of us at Abstract, a heartfelt welcome. Thank you. Just thank you so much from us to them. So just convey that to us, from us to them. All
Yeah.
right, so let's just get into this together. Do you want to say something? Sorry, I'm
No, I
just
was
jumping
going to
over.
say that's been top of mind for me as well. So thanks
It
for.
has been, and I'm so thankful for everyone in that space. So let's get into it together. We have 30 minutes to chat. I'm going to dialogue a little bit about what it means to lead a 100% remote design team. We do have a moderator in the Q&A. I think I saw Allison jump in real quick.
Allison.
She's the best. So if you have a question, drop it in our Q&A section, and we'll get to some of those at the end as we get going. So I'm here to be the Q, and Sarah's here to be the A.
I'll see. Yeah, I'll see what
All
I got.
right, we'll see how this goes. How about this for an opener? Let's see here. We have seen maybe some technical issues. Okay, no, we're good. We're good. We're good. All right, right on. Just making sure. We're doing all kinds of new things. We're like
We have the most
on
amazing
YouTube.
support team too.
We do. All kinds of people are like, we're doing it. We're doing it.
It's like blowing up right now. Thank all y'all.
It's so good. So hey, there's a lot of knowledge workers, Sarah, that are shifting from IRL to the WFH life.
Yeah.
Since you're an experienced manager and leader, like what are some ways that you empower teams or your teams to work from wherever they are?
Yeah. So the first thing would be the tools. I mean, the tools are going to be
Yeah.
critical. good tools are critical for any job, any design job. They're just a little bit different when you're talking about completely distributed design teams. So Slack, Zoom, Miro for whiteboarding. One of the questions I get asked a lot is, what do you do about whiteboarding? Miro has been huge for us here. It doesn't have quite the same feel as like using a marker and, you know, being able to do that stuff on the fly, but it's actually super, super powerful.
Yeah.
And then abstract. I mean, you know, we can get into that later, but so tool, you know, the right tools, documentation is huge. So, you know, one of the things is that the work is happening asynchronously, right? So being able to document the conversations and the decision making that happens is critical. And I can say that the documentation here at Abstract is above and beyond any place that I've ever worked. We're a little bit all over the place in terms of which teams use which tools, but definitely, you know, document meetings, meeting notes, briefs, you know, lots of just fantastic documentation. But, you know, above, so there's, you know, there's like the tools and processes and the nitty gritty there, but above and beyond that, one of the things that is a key difference is we just really have to double down on the connection with one another. So one of the biggest differences is and you don't realize this at first, but in an office, when you're co-located, you have all of those moments of connection where, you know, you pass somebody in the hallway, you run and grab a cup of coffee together, and, you know, conversations happen. Sometimes they're about the work and sometimes they're just about, you know, connecting with one another. And so what's different when you have a remote team is that you have to be intentional about those moments of connection. They're actually really, really important. You know, there's been a lot of study, Google's, I think it's the Aristotle Project, and Simon Sinek has talked about this as well, but that when you have connection on a team, they're far more willing to innovate and take risks and put themselves out there. And so, you know, as a leader leading a remote team, you really have to double down on that connection and build in, like consciously build in opportunities for your team to connect on a kind of on a social, emotional level.
Yeah, it's wild. So like there's tools and the processes, but like ultimately there's this humanity that we have to have with one another. That by nature of our distance, you know, by digital distance, we have to sort of plan that. And it's not like by happenstance. And I think that's actually an important thing just in general, not just for design, but for us in general.
Absolutely. Yep.
So good.
Oh, it's just the connection with each other, and then connection with customers is another thing I wanted to mention. So, you know, obviously when you're remote, you don't have maybe like the usability lab where you can go and observe studies. What I will say is that, you know, I think we're pretty well equipped to be able to see customers from all over the world. We use Zoom for all of our customer research as well. And so that means that designers can chat with customers on the other side of the globe, which has been really powerful for us.
Oh, that's super amazing. I love that. So so you sort of like brought it down to like the tools, the documentation, and then those like personal connections. Just riffing off script together for us, like what are some of those like sweet moments that you have in those connection spaces? Like what how do you sort of like, you know, build that with your group?
So this has been, you know, kind of an ongoing experiment to figure out the best ways to build. I mean, one of the best ways obviously is just going to be one-on-ones with your directs. Like have that weekly one-on-one, do not skip it, do not move it. And don't use it to talk about the status of the work. Like the digital tools are there. You know, for me, if I want to know what someone's working on and what the status is, I've got Abstract, I've got, you know, Slack if I need it. Use that time to connect with each other on, you know, a social level, on an emotional level. Talk to your directs about what their goals are, understand what's going on in their world. Because when you're in an office space as well, you can pick up on like somebody's going through a rough patch or somebody's distracted. And you don't get the chance to see that when you're remote. So use that time just to listen, like do that like deep active listening with your team.
How are you doing? And really kind of like make sure you traverse the digital space and feel that and be genuine and authentic. So from your perspective, what's really common between the in real life work and the work from home life, or maybe what's different, or maybe you can kind of share from both sides?
Yeah, I mean, what's the same is the craft, right? Like the craft of design does not change whether
Mm.
you're, in a beautiful loft in downtown San Francisco, or you're, in
Yeah.
a drafty office in Seattle.
Yeah.
Um, so, we start with customer problem just like any other team. We use critique to level each other up. We explore, we ideate, review, ship. Fundamentally the process is the same. I would say we're even actually faster in the
Mm.
exploration of ideation, because one of the differences that you do have when you're co-located is that ICs have unlimited focus time at their hands, right? So
Mm.
one of my prior teams, I actually had to make the case to allow the designers to work from home 1 day a week because we were in an open office plan. They sat next to the engineers and they were finding it increasingly difficult to get that
Wow.
focus, to get into flow state. Like
Yeah.
designers know what I'm talking about flow state. So one thing that your design team has, your individual contributors have in a remote setup is like unlimited flow.
Yeah.
So put a block on your calendar and you can go super deep.
Right.
So I think that makes us faster at ideation.
That's interesting.
Yeah. One big difference to call out is the visibility of the work, right?
Yeah.
So in a physical space, design has the advantage of being a visual discipline in a physical space, right? So what that means is you've got printouts, you've got mocks on the walls, you've got designs up on people's monitors all across, whiteboards. You can see artifacts of design exercises. And those are ways, it's like subtly to like build the visibility and display the impact of design, right? And you have, in-person design reviews, things like that. So this is another one of those, just like with connection, that design leaders have to lean in when you're talking about a remote environment. That's honestly one of the reasons that I love our product, is that it provides that visibility to the entire organization. Like, yes, it lets me see what everybody's working on, but it also provides visibility for design to the entire organization. Like there is some, fast moving work in progress. They can go and observe like the iterative process, just like you would see with mock-ups on the wall.
Like all the stages of like end to like even in the middle, in medias res, if you will, if I could use a literary term, where things are happening, the visibility is really uncovered in that abstract moment. It's cool.
Absolutely. And it basically like unhides all of the work and effort that the design organization is putting into the craft.
So maybe can you talk a little bit more about that? Like how is abstract, I mean, I know you are talking about it, but maybe a little bit more on how is abstract using abstract as a way of sort of like enhancing or developing that visibility into each other's work. So you got, how is it practically happening here?
I mean, so, one of the biggest ways is just the ability for stakeholders, engineers, the basically like the peers of the designers that they're working, engineers, product team can go in, look at the work in progress, have that conversation right there in context. One of the other real powerful things is that ability to like create a collection of the work that they're working on, put all of the documentation links, an overview of the customer problem, all that is right there. So the conversation is happening at the same place that like the requirements.
Moving stuff around. Yep.
Yeah. And then, you share that collection with your team and they can, they have the context, they can look at the work, they can comment on work in progress. You can work out implementation details right there. That's absolutely huge.
And you sort of mentioned it before, it's like, because we don't have those like in-person interactions of like drive-bys, hallway conversations, whatever, you got to document everything, or you have to put it in there.
That's you stole my thunder because
well, okay, all right, sorry, I thought we were going to share thunder. It's cool.
No, I mean that was what I was going to say, is like that is the real power, right? So I think we're shifting from this mindset of remote work being something that we have to like overcome, but honestly the power of remote work is also that you're forced to document everything. You don't have drive-bys, you don't have hallway conversations where a decision gets made. Shout out to my last design team.
Yeah.
I solved the problem, y'all.
Yeah.
Um, you know, we've all had that moment of like, why did we decide to do it that way? Because
Right.
you chatted with an engineer in the hallway and he's like, it's not going to work. And, or, they thought of a better way to do it. And so you run back to your desk and you make the change. And then 6 months later, you're like, I don't remember why we did it this way.
Right. Right.
In remote work, all of that conversation is happening. I mean, some of it might happen in a Zoom meeting.
Maybe. Yeah.
But so much of it is happening, in the context of the product itself, or or you're talking in Slack. One of the things I love is that we have dedicated Slack channels for project work and for working groups that are, set up together. And so it's, you can go back and you can look at how that decision was made.
Right.
And the same thing.
So let's talk about that. Let's take that into like the design space, like for design critiques. How do you kind of balance like the like synchronous or versus asynchronous reviews from your design teams, or maybe like talk about this sort of stack of events that get you there?
Yeah, for sure. So we have 2 critiques a week. We do one on Tuesdays where it's just the product design team. And it's just a chance for us to kind of level each other up and bring work to the table that is in progress or that you're blocked on, stuck. And then we have another review that involves stakeholders and engineers and your amazing team, the design advocates, who are basically like our our portal to the customer, right? And that's a synchronous conversation that happens. But one of the things we do is in that review, we share the link to the collection. And so if you have thoughts later, or if you want to follow up on something, you can jump into that collection. Comment. One of the things we do too that I love is that in the interest of like creating a space for neurodiverse types of voices, in our design reviews, the first 5 minutes we actually all spend just looking at the designs. And so what that does,
it's like meditative. I love when that starts. We'll take 5 minutes to do it together, meditatively almost.
Yeah, one of my designers was just really sharp and called out the fact that it can be really difficult to have your voice heard in a critique where, excuse me, where everybody's talking at the same time and you haven't had a chance to actually review the work. And so taking that 5 minutes at the beginning to just everybody look through it. Yep.
And get on board. I love that moment where you sort of share. It's like you're sitting with the design for a second before you just start, I'm always trying to figure out what to say next. Maybe you don't need to say anything next. To your point about neurodiverse. Go ahead.
Exactly. And again, like that is also the advantage of having a tool where you can have that conversation, because if you're someone who has a strong opinion, but maybe doesn't feel like shouting over all the other voices in the room, you have an outlet for it.
Right on, right on. So, so this is what collaboration looked for me, maybe you, when it was like pre being remote, and for some of our folks on the call here, like what it was like 2 weeks ago or something. You'd search for like an empty block of time on everyone's calendar. You'd schedule a design sync. You'd gather in the same room. You'd finally figure out how to get your projector on, maybe walk the PMs and the engineering team through design ideas through a slide deck, write down the post-it notes. Is this like too close to home for like, you guys remember doing this 2 weeks ago? So you're sort of like telling us how you do it now. What are some other things you do to sort of get things going?
Yeah, I mean, we do a Zoom kickoff for most of the big projects. Put the documentation in place. So, we use Dropbox paper for a lot of our documentation. The product team uses Confluence. I mean, the key thing for me is really getting the lead designer and the PM and maybe the dev lead for that project, getting them talking about this as early as possible. And also starting with starting with that customer problem and making sure that customer problem is documented so that we can all agree on it and use that as the focus of the conversation. Again, that paper trail is like amazing. And then it evolves just like any other work does. There's not a huge difference in process here other than build in that intentionality, build the connection, and document as many of these conversations as you can.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's changing. I think that's a great, like, just sort of walkthrough of how we're doing things. And things are changing. Some of it's rapidly around us and near us. Um, how do you see this for the future for us? Like, is this some inflection point for our sort of designing the design function essentially? Like, are we changing? Is this changing?
I hope we are, honestly. Like, I hate the idea that the change is happening as a result of a global crisis, right?
For
Like
sure. Yeah.
that's me. But I have seen things starting to drift this way already. So it's an encouragement to me that we're starting to think about allowing people. I mean, there's so many reasons that I think that distributed work is above and beyond forcing folks to be co-located. I
Yeah.
love that I get to work with people. I love, I love that
This.
I would never have met you, right?
Right.
I get to work with designers from all over the country. And we have one designer who's international. I get to talk to people from every different, I mean, that's what's been amazing in as seeing this unfold too, is talking to folks who are in Nashville and folks who are in Florida and
Yeah.
hearing what it's like for them and that shared experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Being able to hire talented designers and not ask them to uproot their lives and
Yeah.
um, and move to a new city is amazing. And because I'm a giant dirt hippie, the fact that I'm not driving every day makes me really happy, right?
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Those of us in Seattle, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, I would love to see us all take a fresh look at remote work and remote design. And again, like that other point that I made about the maker space, the flow state, the
Yeah.
ability for, there's a lot of conversations about open floor plans and whether or not they work, and I'm not going to dogpile into that one, but
Yeah.
I do know that for me, it was always very hard to concentrate. And so that ability to really get into flow state, it's
Right.
just going into it with open eyes and understanding what the challenges are. And it's not the work that's the challenge. It's not the process that's the
Mm.
challenge, that connection aspect.
So that's a really great way to sort of like wrap our conversation time here together. As I have my open office, I have an open office home plan here, and maybe some of our folks do too, because they didn't get the chance to maybe to build out their office space. But lunchtime's starting to happen. I can kind of hear that back there. Cafeteria's open at the house, but I'm super thankful for you, Sarah. It's such good wisdom. I'm really looking forward to where this takes us, as
Yeah.
you sort of mentioned in the future. And I love what you're saying. It's about good tools, good communication, good documentation, but ultimately like a generous heaping dose of empathy and
Yeah.
that deep personal connection to one
Yeah.
another.
And I
So
mean, just one last, sorry, I just want to toss one last
I
thought in
want you
there
to, yeah,
about
go for it.
during these times in particular, just be human, like
Mm,
acknowledge that we're humans with children or with pets or with, the garbage truck that's about to roll past my office here.
yeah.
Just allow each other to be human during this time and know that your meetings are not going to be perfect and,
Oh yeah. What a
have you,
gift you are giving to us to be able to like just remind ourselves that it is about being human.
yeah,
Let's take some questions from the folks. Is that cool? So this one's starting to rise to the top. This is from Nadia. She says, as a design manager, how do you manage the thin line between I want to check in because I care about you versus the impression I definitely want to micromanage you, kind of in that like check
yeah.
working time or even invade that private space time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's a really fair question. I would say um, connect with your team, trust your team, and if your team is meeting their deadlines, I think that you build in checkpoints for the work itself, right? Like critiques, like I said, or deadlines. Make sure that everybody understands what's expected of them, and then trust them to deliver, and checking
Hmm.
on them as human beings. But this need to uh, there's just this anxiety about how am I going to know what my team is doing with their time, and the fact is you're not going to know what they're doing with their time, but if they're delivering the work and it's quality work, I think that's the key.
That's great. That's great. just real side small note. I just launched a poll. If you guys wouldn't mind dropping your feedback, we'll take some more questions here. I want to get it in before we all leave. But
Yeah.
so Paul, and I know Paul is a local to Philadelphia guy, so this better be a good answer. JK, he's a great dude. So how do you kind of keep up with having consistent morale within your remote team?
Yeah, morale is hard, but that's where, again, as a leader, you really lean into those opportunities to build culture and connection. Again, one-on-ones, you keep your one-on-ones for connecting with people, but also build in opportunities to bond. One of the things that we've been doing lately is at the end of our critique, like the last 15, 20 minutes, been doing like a sketching exercise together. Super
Yeah.
good stuff. We played Pictionary the other day, which was hilarious. On my team is mad at me because I won and they think that I cheated.
Oh, that's not fair. How do you
I'm
win?
not sure how you cheat at Pictionary.
Well,
but no, yeah, definitely. Culture is really important, and there's opportunities to bond. Yeah.
that's really good. So there's another question here, sort of related to that, about around meetings, but like meetings have increased ever since remote work has started. How do you deal with too many meetings?
Yeah, I mean, this is actually a conversation we're having as a
Oh
team
yeah, big
now,
time.
in the interest of becoming more efficient. Every meeting should have an agenda. If
Yep.
you can make it an email or a Slack conversation, do. And if you get a meeting request and there's no agenda and you're not sure what purpose the meeting serves or what your responsibility is, reach out, ask the question. If you don't get an answer, decline the meeting. I mean, just be thrifty and use asynchronous tools whenever it's something that doesn't need a face-to-face conversation. Zoom fatigue is real, people. Zoom fatigue is a thing.
It is. And just like if the TLDR on that is like say no
Yeah.
to meetings. For me, it's like if you can't
Absolutely.
find value in it and you can't contribute value into it, you should be absolved.
And protect your time, makers. Block off chunks on your calendar for headspace. Label it and be transparent about what you're doing, but protect your time.
I agree. I got good blockers on my time for the family time. You guys need it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're running toward the edge here. I think we can answer a couple more questions, but we're going to wrap in a little bit here, and we're going to probably have some more conversation coming out. So like if you didn't get your question answered here, we'll love to dialogue some more further. I'll say this out loud. If you just want to reach out to me personally or Sarah, I'll take notes for Sarah if she wants it, but I'll give my email. It's scott@abstract.com. Not super complex. Happy to hear from you.
And, the other thing is if you want to continue the dialogue, we'd actually love to hear from you as a company. Hit us up on Twitter and tell us how you're coping with remote life, with, remote design teams. Talk to us about your challenges and some of the solutions that you've found.
Yeah, and I saw one here, Dana. She's amazing. She's our brand design lead here at Abstract. She reaches out, and I love how my first week, not even on the same squad as she, and she reached out to me. That's a super important thing, and I think we have a special connection because of that. All right, so you want to take a couple more questions? Are you okay on time? Whoever else is here, let's go for a couple more. So like, we got one here. How do you perform user research tests or tests if everyone in the team is working remotely?
Yeah. Just like any other study, we reach out to participants, we put together a prototype, we schedule the time, we use Zoom to do it. And like I said earlier, I think that the ability to work with customers from all over the globe is super powerful for us. So, for anyone who's ever used usertesting.com, little plug for them, it works exactly the same way.
Yeah, right on. I do like that. So there's another kind of question, kind of like counter to what we sort of said before, like about focus time. This is not regular working from home focus time. We're really distracted, feel unfocused.
Yeah.
Not 100% productive.
Yeah.
I'm all about that. Yeah, it is like, it's a barrage on us. So how do we handle this situation here? Top management might, have expectations that might not change. Deadlines are missed. How do we prepare for this? Should we wait a couple weeks? What do you say to this kind of question here.
Be human. I mean, I understand that there are deadlines, but this is like a globally unprecedented event. And I don't use the word unprecedented lightly. Like we've
No,
never seen
I've never heard you say it before until just now. No,
um,
but it's true. It's crazy.
yeah. And I will just go out on a limb and I say that I think as leaders, it is our job to protect our people. And so if you have, it's your job to walk that line between managing the expectation of the folks at the top and protecting your team. You protect your talent, protect the folks that are showing up every day for you. Give them the space that they need, support them in what they need. Just be there for them and recognize that this is not business as usual right now.
Yeah. That's a great, I mean, it is just such a weird thing. I think that's good for all of us, me as a parent to children, you as a child to parents, by the way, what's the deal with parents not taking this seriously? Let's get them taking it seriously, everybody.
No, they're not. Mine aren't
Not
anyway.
different live event.
Conversation.
So I got one from a friend, Reed, here. So he's saying, when opening up the design process to stakeholders, what kind of context do you find most important to share? How do you handle stakeholders that are art directing or focusing on details they shouldn't be? Maybe this is actually a good point too about in abstract or using abstract, you can see a lot of details that how do you keep it trim for them?
Customer problem. What customer problem? I literally have a sticky note on my desk. Terrible handwriting. What user problem is this solving? Right. Yep. So make that a point of every conversation, bring it up at every critique, and make sure that when you're sharing the work, if it's in a collection in abstract, or you're just, I don't know, putting some mocks up in Dropbox paper or whatever, whatever way you use to share your work, make sure that the customer problem is right there. Use the research, use the discovery research to back up the decision making, use your, usability testing results to back up the iterations that you make. Use data. We could get into a whole conversation about using data to defend your designs and to validate your designs. It all comes back to being the voice of the customer as designers, as product designers or user experience designers, and making sure that you explain how this work is solving that customer problem.
Yeah, man, if we're not solving the customer problem and if they're not asking us to do that, maybe we have an imbalance here.
Yeah.
So, hey, there's a bunch of questions here, but we're going to wrap for the sake of time. Thanks for spending extra time with us, friends.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
Sarah, thank you so much for your wisdom. I'm so glad to always just, like you said, we would have not been able to work together, and I'm grateful that we could have or can and continue to do that. So any parting last words, any benediction you want to give for us all?
Just be human. Yeah. And take care.
Yeah, likewise. And wash your hands. There it is. You got to drop that in every one of them.
Mom joke there. All right.
No, it's not a mom joke. It's like a real 2020 joke. Yeah. Thank you, friends, so much. We'll catch you guys next time. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for being an amazing host.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Take care.